Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. I have a great guest coming in, Milo Yiannopoulos of Breitbart. Interesting guy. I'm sure many of you know who he is. He's very well known. He's was sort of got a claim for fame with the start of Gamergate. He's very outspoken and definitely attracts a lot of attention. He's most recently been trending on Twitter when they sort of degraded his account over what he was saying. Apparently, we're going to ask him all about that. But the reason that I did contact him is because it was about a week or two ago, or maybe longer, that Milo posted on Facebook, I think I'm an anarcho-capitalist, and I'm like Batman when that happens, like putting a bat signal into the sky. I immediately contacted him and said, oh, are you? And if so, I want you to have you on my show and have you come into Anarchapulco. And he said, sure. So let's get started, Milo. Are you an anarcho-capitalist?
Well, I don't know. Thanks for having me so much, by the way. I don't know. I've just sort of, there's this great guy on YouTube called That Guy T, which some of you may know.
He's a past Anarchast guest.
Is he?
Yes.
And I like him. I like some of the stuff he says. And the more I sort of, as you know, they say when you start liberal when you're younger and you turn into a conservative when you're older. You know, when you start to have money and sort of things make a bit more sense to you. Well, I started as a conservative, and I think I'm going off the deep end into something else as I get older. So I sort of read about you guys and did a bit of reading, and I'm sort of thinking, well, I don't know if I am yet. Maybe in the course of this conversation we can discover the definitive answer. But I certainly am fascinated by this, and I think we have many of the same enemies in common, which is always a good sign.
Yeah, definitely. And it is interesting. You write for Breitbart, which is well known as being a sort of a conservative, right-wing sort of a website. To me, conservatives are communist because they believe in central planning of policing, central planning of security, of war, things like that. So it's sort of funny to me. Where did that word conservative come from anyway? I was just thinking about it today because many of them aren't really all that conservative. Of course, the neoconservatives, sort of like the neo-Nazis, are definitely not that conservative at dropping bombs all over the world. Just ask you your take on conservatism and that sort of thing.
Well, conservatism means that you want to conserve things, and I think conservatives would say that they recognize the value of institutions like the church and the state, maybe, but also other sort of cultural institutions as being cohesive glue that binds society together, that enables cultures to create great things and to achieve great things. It's the highly networked historical institutions, whether it's the church or whatever, have created the space for great works of art to be made. Networked institutions that have created, global capitalism and all of the wealth, the rising up out of poverty that is made possible by capitalism. They would say, I think, that they don't like change for its own sake and prefer to sit back, wait for the evidence to roll in and see whether radical changes, for example, to the institution of marriage are a good thing, rather than progressives who like to sort of dabble and tinker and see how far they can push it and eventually get persuaded to roll back when they realize they've gone a bit too far in some respects. I think conservatives instinctively understand that people are better when they work together. Of course, you as anarcho-capitalists, and I don't know, I'm exploring the field here. You as anarcho-capitalists probably have a different idea of what working together looks like. But for a conservative, that can take the form of, church, local community, various other, maybe even the press, various other institutions, sort of capitalist institutions too, by the way, academia. And these are the things that drive civilization forward, and we should protect those, and we should protect the things about them that work well, and not throw them out just because somebody had an idea about transgender pronouns or, perceived racism on campus. So, for me, it's about appreciating what history has taught us and not forging ahead with radical change for the sake of it, unless we're really sure we know what we're doing.
Yeah, well, I guess the anarcho-capitalist take on all that is anarcho-capitalists are totally fine with churches, with schools, with anything, as long as it's not violently aggressing against others. So I guess the conservative approach is that using the violence of government to keep it in place, that's the big difference.
Right, and I think there's a reason that this anarcho-capitalist movement is particularly popular in America. because of the Constitution, because of great connection and love for freedom and freedom from tyranny of the government, the First and the Second Amendment, both impose essential, important protections in place for many of the values and many of the beliefs that I suppose lead people ultimately to anarcho-capitalism if they decide actually that the state, there's no reason why we should have the state enforce these things on us. We should just be able to do it ourselves. I'm fascinated by your little corner of the universe. So I'm very excited to come to talk to you guys in Mexico. We're going to talk about free speech and the tyranny of the state and how feminism is sort of state-funded tyranny on men, which I think is a reasonable characterization. I'm excited about finding out more about your world.
Yeah, I guess you could say that if you're, there's an old saying that I could add to, if you're not a liberal when you're younger, you're heartless. If you're not a conservative when you're older, you're, what's the saying? You're stupid.
You've got no heart when you're young and no head when you're old.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if you're on the internet for any length of time and you're not a narco-capitalist eventually, then you're just avoiding the real true question of what is right and what is wrong.
So you guys, I guess, think similar to the sort of manosphere, and there seems to be a little bit of overlap, if I may say. Mm-hmm. You guys have a similar sort of red pill moment that you like to talk about, don't you? Sort of like, I was on the internet for ages and I started reading this stuff and suddenly I was like, oh my God, why do these things even exist? This is wrong. You guys are quite sort of fundamentalist about things, aren't you?
I don't know about the word fundamentalist. That gets misused a lot, but definitely there is a red pill moment for most people, and that's why I start the show with how did you become an anarchist? Because most people have that moment that they remember. You were the first one to say that guy T was the one that sort of woke you up to it, which is great. And he's a past guest on Anarchast, and he might be coming to Anarchapulco as well. And I really support all those kind of guys because that's what we need is those sort of people to get out there and just put these issues out there so people with a mind like yourself who can think can go, hey, I've never thought about it that way. And we're not saying that the world would be perfect as if it was anarcho-capitalist or anarchist. We're not even sure it would totally work. It's never really fully been done before, but we say we should be moving definitely in that direction as much as possible, just because it's the most peaceful, most best way for people to get along. And conservatives should understand, because conservatives in general understand economics as opposed to the left-wing sort of people who have no clue about economics, that the best markets are the markets that are the least tampered with, the most free markets. And all we're saying is it goes beyond markets. It goes into every facet of life. The best thing for all humans is not to aggress against others, and that's what statism or authoritarianism or collectivism is.
I think most conservatives would agree with you that in most aspects of life, to be free from tyranny and oppression and undue influence and the sort of the power the state has over the individual is a good thing. And of course, government does misuse its power and overreaches every day in all sorts of appalling ways. But most conservatives would draw the line, and this is where I find it difficult to sort of jump the final, couple of hoops with you. It's simply a question of efficiency and organization, isn't it? Like, if you need to defend a group of people, isn't it easier to have a committee that does that? And that's just sort of the state, isn't it?
Well, you can have a committee without the government.
Yeah, but I suppose that what a lot of people like me coming to this don't quite understand is sort of if you can coordinate with military, and if you can get together to sort of contribute money to collectively build infrastructure, which presumably you'd need, and if you might want to do something similar with education, what's the difference really?
Well, we talked about a few different issues here. Let's start with defense, so military. There's really, look at the U.S. It was the Japanese emperor in World War II who said, who would ever really truly attack the U.S., the mainland U.S., really go in there? There'd be a gun behind every blade of grass. And that's totally true. The U.S. needs no military. There's no way anyone is taking that place over.
You think the U.S. needs no military?
Absolutely not. No, okay. Zero. Who would try? It'd be nuts. There's 300 million guns in that place, which is great. The world's biggest army is actually the hunters in the U.S. Well, who's going to go over there? Like, seriously, what? Russians are going to your average Russian's just going to hop on a cruise ship and hop off and start shooting people. That's not going to last very long. So no, I call it the Department of Offense for that reason. It's not for defense. It's for to put the military establishment, the military industrial complex all over the world and control the whole world is what it's for, essentially. You brought up, what was the other thing you brought up about, roads. This is, you're going to, we get sick of this question as anarchists, but you're kind of new to it.
I'm sorry. For many of your listeners, this is going to be really old news. But think of it this way. You've got the prospect of welcoming in, this shitlord with a burgeoning media profile who's very excited about this whole world. So your listeners are going to have to bear with us while you talk me through the basics of this amazing new thing that I'm discovering at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to walk you through slowly and gently into the world of anarchism, because I see you as definitely being a person that people are taking notice of. So if we can get you to have more understanding of the anarchist concept, that'd be great. And so the roads is a big one. And there's this great meme on Facebook. You ever see the movie Office Space?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so you won't get the joke too much. I'll put the meme up here for people who are watching on YouTube. But essentially, in the movie Office Space, there's this guy who has basically a totally useless job in this company, and he's totally not needed. Basically, he takes the customers send in orders on a fax. He takes it and he walks it over to the guys who make the order. And so they bring in this group of outside consultants to see what his job is and why he's doing it. And this has been turned into an anarchist meme now. And so I'll just tell you the anarchist side of it. So essentially it says, we need the government for roads, right? And the guy goes, well, actually, no, government builds the roads, right? And the guy says, no, actually, it's private companies who build the roads. And he says, oh, okay, so we need the government because they pay for it, right? And he goes, well, no, actually, people pay for it through taxes. And the guys go, well, what do we need government for then? He goes, because people aren't good at dealing with companies. If you saw Office Space, you'd love the joke. You obviously haven't, and you don't get it at all, but that's fine. So
the people at home are laughing, and that is what matters, is that the listeners will get this for.
But basically, there was roads in the U.S. before the government took control of them. Walter Block actually is going to be at Anarchapulco. You might not know about him. He's called Mr. Libertarian. He's one very well-known libertarian and anarchist. He wrote a book about the roads and how you don't need government for roads. Many countries, including here in Mexico, when you're here, you'll see all the highways are toll roads. And I was in Chile, and it's all private roads. And they're so much nicer than the U.S. roads because, of course, free markets. It works so much better when they have a profit incentive and they have to make a profit, whereas governments don't even know if they are or not. But I only have you for a short time here. You're there in London. It's been really hard to even get you on. You told me you did 7 hours of media already today. So I want to pick your brain a little bit and ask you about what's going on. We'll get you more into the loop on anarchy when you're here in Anarchapulco. But you've been going wild on Twitter lately. You've been one of the biggest things trending on Twitter. There's a Je suis Milo hashtag. You were sort of downgraded. And what's that all about? Give us the whole scoop.
Well, this is one of the things I sympathise with you guys about, which is the free speech dimension and the sort of, where the government and private corporations are sort of clubbing together to police what sort of what acceptable speech looks like, as is happening in Germany with the immigrant crisis. Twitter, this is a private sector thing, and this is the private sector not working properly. And some of the solutions I've come up with you might not like very much, but I'll tell you what the basic story is. Twitter has a verification system. You get a little blue badge if you're a public figure, if you're a media personality, celebrity, whatever, or a professional journalist. And they rescinded mine, possibly the first time it's ever happened to a media figure like me, apparently just for sort of ideological infractions. They don't like my opinions very much. They don't like my comedy. They don't like the fact that I mock feminists and Black Lives Matter and all manner of other terrible people, sort of progressive, authoritarian, media elites. They don't like the fact that I, basically raise hell. I cause havoc on Twitter and make people's lives a misery because, I draw attention to their the terrible quality of their arguments and their ludicrous hypocrisy. And they've removed my blue check. Now, it's not the worst case of repression in the history of free speech, But it's significant because it shows that Twitter is using a tool for identity verification for political purposes. And of course, I picked up a fuss about this. It's now, I'm going to be on Fox tomorrow talking about this, the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg. Everybody's written about this, and everybody's very upset about it. And there's been widespread support from all sides of the political spectrum about this, because what it demonstrates is that Twitter has taken a side in the culture wars. Now, that's fine, but Twitter should be honest with its users. And Twitter hasn't been honest with its users for some time now, with the result that trust in the platform is collapsing, with the result that the power users are not as engaged with it as they were anymore, which is a key metric for investors. And people are generally just asking, well, what is really going on with Twitter? I mean, do they want to? Look, there's two options here, right? Either they go full free speech, which is what everybody wants from them. And Jack Dorsey said in October he wanted Twitter to be like, free expression central. He told Nick Bilton for Nick's book, Hatching Twitter, that he wanted Twitter to be like a utility. Well, I don't remember the last time the water company called me and said, we're going to give you less water pressure because we don't want your opinions. If Twitter is going to insist that it's a free speech platform, it cannot simultaneously engage in political censorship, which is what it's doing. So, this is an interesting question for people who, do believe in sort of the free market getting it right. This is an instance of the free market getting it wrong over and over and over again. And social networks have got it wrong over and over and over again. They get co-opted by these sort of social justice warriors, these pearl-clutching, hand-wringing, feminist, far-left progressive activists who recharacterize criticism and ridicule, which are perfectly valid, robust components in any free speech arsenal, in the arsenal of debate, the history of ideas, and they repackage these things as abuse and harassment. They pretend that mocking somebody for being a hypocrite is the same thing as threatening to rape them. Practically, they throw these things in the same bucket to try to scare you away from associating with certain people. And I've become a victim of this, and it's with the result that people are once again losing confidence in Twitter. It's been a huge public relations disaster for them. I note today, although I don't take credit for the whole of it, that Twitter's stock price is down over 5%. It's at record lows by a huge margin. Just before we came on this call, I noticed that it had taken another massive nosedive. I'm speaking to you now at, I think, about 2 or 3 p.m., something like that, Eastern time, and the markets are still open for a little while yet, and Twitter continues to nosedive. Why? Because it's not being transparent with users about freedom of speech.
Yeah, well, thank you. We actually shorted Twitter in the summer at my newsletter, The Dollar Vigilante. So if you contributed to it going down, thanks. We made some money on that.
But you almost certainly did, because it's nosediving.
Great. I'll buy you a drink when you're here. It's interesting. You're on Breitbart, a very conservative sort of thing, conservative audience. But you're not your typical conservative. You're quite outspokenly gay. You're quite you're definitely not your typical sort of conservative stereotype. How is it that you are so popular and so successful there?
I think there are two answers to that question. One is based on a slight misunderstanding of what Breitbart is. I think people have an idea that it's a sort of very angry, furious Tea Party kind of like attack site. And certainly it can be very aggressively it can be aggressive and theatrical in its reporting, both of which are good things, by the way. So I think there's a little, people actually read Breitbart kind of understand that it's pretty much free speech central. We publish, unlike other media organizations, unlike very many other media organizations, we publish, widely different opinions on things. But the main answer to your question is that I think I'm one of a new generation of commentators on the right who, first of all, speak to a much younger audience than anyone in conservative media traditionally has. Fox News' demographic is 60 plus. Your typical conservative news site, 50 plus. People like Stephen Crowder, who is great, is an online comedian, great presence on YouTube, very funny guy. Probably 40 plus, I would guess. My audience goes down as low as 15. I get emails from school children saying they love me. I have much more of a sort of entertainment personality fan demographic than any other journalist I know. But I still break stories and I do investigative reporting. It's just that I also bring in, I suppose, a level of comedy and activism in a blend that we haven't previously seen on the right. There've always been these hybrid comedian, activist, journalists on the left. They've always found berths in respectable left-wing publications, but there hasn't really before been a sort of breakout star on the right who appeals to people as young as 15 and is teaching them the virtues of free speech and liberty and fighting against, political correctness and feminism and oppression, the oppression of different points of view. I think that's relatively new, and if it is, and even the people who have been sort of dissident culture warriors like Andrew Breitbart, the founder of the site I now work for, still I think he was his primary audience was politically engaged adults, whereas I, as more of an entertainment personality, talk about video games and talk about Twitter and talk about all the things that people care about who aren't necessarily 50 plus, and as a result I've got such a wide and such an excellent fan base that there's not really anybody else quite like me in conservative media.
Yeah, well, I would definitely agree with that. I don't know anyone who's like you in conservative media, or any media, really. You're quite your own independent, different personality. One thing that you probably haven't noticed because you're just waking up to anarcho-capitalism now, but I've definitely noticed because I'm always watching for it, is there seems to be a lot more people waking up to it. For example, on Fox, there's one reporter who said that he's a anarcho-capitalist, but the way he described it, I don't think he is. I think he's just a capitalist.
I think people often use this anarcho-capitalism to mean I'm a really, really small state pro-free market conservative. And when I hear you guys talk, you mean something a bit different.
Yeah, no state at all, definitely. No central banks, no taxes, no regulation.
You push most conservatives on this, and like, well, you want to get rid of the Department of Defense? No, what are you talking about? Well, then you're not an anarcho-capitalist.
Yeah, I don't know what they're so scared about. Why do they need all these guys on welfare with guns to protect them? I thought conservatives are supposed to be, sort of independent sort of people, but they really seem to need the centrally planned communist-style...
Welfare, that's terrible.
Well, how do they get paid? They get paid from stolen funds. How's that different than someone on welfare? The only difference is they go and they just, blow up kids in other parts of the world instead of just sitting around on the street and smoking weed. I'd actually prefer if they would do that instead.
I think that's the point of difference between us, and it may be something that I'm on the fence on. I react badly when I hear like that kind of rhetoric.
Hey, I got you to react. You're usually the one doing that.
I know, right? You trolled me. That's never happened before. I was like, wait a minute, shut up.
How dare you?
That's going to be a hurdle I'll have to get over if I want to come join you guys, for sure, because I don't know, maybe it's growing up as a conservative, I feel very instinctively pro-forces, and I have great respect for those guys. You may disagree with what their leaders send them to do, and I certainly do in many cases, but I think, I would shy away from that characterization, I think.
Yeah, well,
you've got 5 days and a lot of alcohol in Mexico.
Well, like you, I like to be a little bit, put things in people's face. I don't mean every single person in the military is a total douchebag. I'm just sort of saying what it is. They do get paid from stolen funds, which are taxes, so it's not that different than anyone on welfare. No, actually, many anarcho-capitalists, you'll find this out when you come down here, are ex-military. I just had on Ken O'Keefe. I don't know if you know him, ex-Marine, who's turned into a total anti-war anarchist activist. So, there's a lot of, and that was sort of the point I was getting at, is there's a lot of people sort of waking up to it. I've seen on Forbes a number of pro-anarchist, pro-anarcho-capitalist articles. I've seen it on Breitbart to some extent at times. Fox News, as I pointed out, even Judge Napolitano of Fox is an anarcho-capitalist, past Anarchast guest. So there is I think you're part of awakening that's spreading, which is great. And that's why I wanted to reach out to you. And even though you're not all the way there yet and you have questions, which is totally fine. That's what this is all about, is education.
Very open to persuasion in all things. But no, I'm very much looking forward. I'm very grateful to you guys for the invitation to Anarchapulco, which is the best named conference I will ever have attended. It's very cool.
Yeah, thank you. Just for people who are watching and don't know, but I'll just play the trailer for Anarchapulco now.
I wanna dance by water beneath the Mexican sky, drink some margaritas by a string of blue lights, listen to the mariachi play at midnight, Are you with me? Are you with me?
Coming this February 19th to 21st in Acapulco, Mexico, the most irreverent freedom conference on earth returns. Anarchapulco, the world's first and largest anarcho-capitalist conference, is back. And this time, it is going to be fucking insane. Leaders from the freedom movement worldwide descend onto the beautiful beaches of Acapulco to create a new, better world, free of the state, and have a lot of fun. Top speakers include Larkin Rose, Mr. Libertarian Walter Block, Adam Kokesh, Breitbart's Milo Yiannopoulos, We Are Change's Luke Radowski, Ken O'Keefe, the Bitcoin Jesus Roger Ver, Mark Victor, the Never Get Busted Crew's Barry Cooper, Max Egan, Zen Gardner, the President of Liberland, Vít Jedlička, Lauren Rumpler, Dana Martin, the Dragon Anarchist, Amanda Rockwitz, and of course, the Dollar Vigilante, Jeff Berwick. Headline musical acts Elias Clay and Elle Dixon. Also, surrounding the conference dates, educational and informative workshops and summits, including the Anarchapulco Entrepreneurship Bootcamp, the Dollar Vigilante Internationalization and Investment Summit, Change Media University, the Unschooling and Peaceful Parenting Workshop, the Direct Dating Summit with Sasha Daygame, the 4th Rational Physics Conference, and an ayahuasca ceremony. For more information and to register now before it sells out, go to anarchapulco.com. Anarchapulco. Peace, love, anarchy.
So, great to have you coming down. So excited to meet you in person. Big fan. I saw you with Lauren Southern doing your anti-feminism stuff. Lauren Southern is also an anarchist, past Anarchast guest. I don't know if you even knew that. Yeah, see, people keep quiet about these things. But
are you a sort of dirty secret? Is it like having a copy of Razzle under the mattress or something? It's sort of like, oh well, yes, I was actually, yes, I was on that podcast as well. I can imagine people sort of I have the same thing. This is why perhaps we'll get on. I have the same thing. People read me and then don't want to admit it. So they don't actually follow me, but they check my profile all the time,
Oh, yeah.
I'm probably the most hate-read journalist on the internet at the moment. Everybody reads everything I write, but nobody talks about it. In workplaces, across the world, you've got people sort of, have you read this Milo? Oh, thank God, you as well. It does have that. When you just said that, I had a moment of recognition and sympathy for you, because I have very much the same thing with my readers.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to get along great down here. I have a lot of good stories. So I should let you go. You're there in London. You'll be coming over. I think you'll be in New York, and then you're going to come to Acapulco, Mexico after that, and then back to London. Yeah. So you're a busy guy. Why don't you finish up with anything you want to talk about, and just let people know, in case they don't know, where they can get more information on you on Twitter and anywhere else.
Sure. Well, you can find me at Breitbart, and you can just Google my name and Breitbart. The best, so long as I am still allowed to have a Twitter account, because who knows, they could cut me off at any time. You can find me at twitter.com/Nero, as in the Emperor, who was awesome, apart from the Christian burning thing. In all other ways, he was wonderful. Well, he was one of those guys that was sort of loathed by the elites, but loved by the people, and of course, slightly bombastic and self-involved. So you can imagine why I chose that handle. I'm on Twitter, I'm on YouTube, I don't use my Instagram, but and just look out for columns and provocations and interesting alternative takes on received wisdom, in particular the sort of nonsense about wage gaps and campus rape cultures and all that kind of nonsense. And I'm going to be looking actually at women in the military soon, which I know you don't like the whole institution, but I'll be looking soon at women in the military, so you can look out for that soon. And I will be investigating this world I've discovered called Anarcho-Capitalism. And I would look out probably sometime in February while I'm on my dangerous faggot tour throughout North America, which you can look up on my website. I'll be looking into this world of Anarcho-Capitalism. I may well write something on that too.
Wonderful. That's awesome. So we'll look forward to seeing you down here. For people, if you've watched this because you know Milo, but you don't know anything about anarchy or anarcho-capitalism, but this conversation has got you intrigued, come on down to Anarchapulco. Just like Milo, we'll bring you in nicely. We'll just get rid of a few wrong ideas in your head and get it all sorted out, and you'll be all
You'll
better.
It sounds very sinister. So it's suddenly sounding like a re-education camp.
No, it's with tequila, and it's going to be fun. So on the beach in Acapulco, Mexico. So it's going to be a good time. So if you like this video, please like, subscribe, share down below. And that's it for Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. Peace, love, and anarchy.
Well, I think that feminism, first of all, the entire thing they claim to be fighting for equality has been a lie, and what their actual actions have been. As I've said in many of my videos and my debates with feminists, I've exposed a lot of the, just quite frankly, exaggerations they use to keep feminism as a relevant movement. Well, we're starting to see influence in the states, in the US, of people who are not professional politicians making their way into politics.
I believe that my birth nation has gone completely rogue, that it is the biggest threat to the safety and security of people around the world, and that if we as conscientious people do not take responsibility for this monster, this will not change. In fact, it will play out to the point of total self-destruction. If you believe that we are not responsible, if you believe the government is responsible, or the CIA is responsible, or whoever else, the media is responsible, if you believe that's true, then what are the chances that the media, the CIA, or the government are simply going to do the right thing?
From Acapulco, Mexico, this is Anarchast.